Terrifyingly real moments in Stranger Things. Stranger Things feels like pure science fiction. A girl with telekinetic powers, a monster from another dimension, a secret government laboratory conducting experiments on children. It's all fantasy, right? Wrong. What if I told you that some of the most disturbing elements of Stranger Things aren't fiction at all? That the experiments conducted on 11 actually happened to real people? That the government conspiracy at the heart of the show is based on declassified CIA operations? That the Duffer Brothers didn't just imagine Hawkins Lab, they researched actual government facilities where horrifying experiments took place? The supernatural parts might be fiction, but the foundation is terrifyingly real. And once you know the truth, you'll never watch Stranger Things the same way again. Let's start with the most obvious connection. The experiments on 11 and her mother, Terry, the sensory deprivation tanks, the LSD, the mind control attempts. All of this comes directly from a real CIA program that sounds too evil to be true. Project MK Ultra. In Stranger Things, 11's mother, Terry Ives, is experimented on while pregnant, given LSD and subjected to sensory deprivation by Dr. Brenner. The show explicitly mentions Project MK Ultra as the basis for these experiments. And this isn't creative license. This actually happened. MK Ultra was created by the CIA in 1953 with the aim of developing mind control techniques that could give America an advantage against Russia in the Cold War. The goal was to unlock the potential of the human mind, create substances that could alter personality and behavior, and develop interrogation techniques that could break anyone. MK Ultra took place at over 80 institutions, schools and universities, jails, even hospitals. And a lot of the participants had no idea they were part of a government experiment. Unwitting civilians were dosed with LSD in bars, restaurants, and brothels. CIA operatives watched through two-way mirrors, documenting the effects as people experienced terrifying psychedelic episodes without understanding what was happening to them. The experiments violated the Nuremberg Code, a set of ethical principles for human experimentation that includes consent and prohibits inhumane and fatal experimentation. The very code established after Nazi atrocities was being violated by the American government on American soil. But here's where it gets even darker. Dr. Ewan Cameron, working on MK Ultra Subproject 68 at the Allen Memorial Hospital in Montreal, developed a three-step brainwashing program. His theory was that mental illness could be cured by completely destroying a person's personality and rebuilding it from scratch. About 80 patients went through the program, which started with drugging patients into sleep lasting for days, up to 86 days. This included several electroshock therapy treatments a day, much stronger than normal, in order to completely break a person's mind. Patients were reduced to the mental capacity of 4-year-old children, unable to speak, unable to remember their families, unable to function. Sound familiar? That's exactly what happens to 11's mother, Terry, in the show. She's left catatonic, trapped in a loop of traumatic memories, her mind shattered by the experiments. The Duffer Brothers didn't exaggerate. If anything, they understated the horror. And the sensory deprivation tanks that 11 uses to enhance her powers, those were real too. Sensory deprivation was used by the government as part of MK Ultra. Subjects were placed in complete isolation, deprived of all external stimuli, until they experienced hallucinations, paranoia, and psychological breaks. The goal was to make people vulnerable to suggestion, to reprogram their minds, to see if consciousness could be controlled. In Stranger Things, the tanks enhance 11's psychic abilities. In real life, they destroyed people's sanity. Now here's the truly disturbing part. There's no definitive evidence that MK Ultra experiments were performed on children, but conspiracy theorists point to something called Project Montauk, which allegedly involved testing mind control techniques on kids. The goal? Create the perfect super soldier, just like 11. We can't prove Project Monarch existed. But we know MK Ultra did. We know children have claimed to be victims of government experimentation, and we know that most MK Ultra documents were destroyed in 1973, meaning we'll never know the full scope of what happened. So when you watch Dr. Brenner experimenting on children in Hawkins Lab, remember, the government actually did conduct unethical experiments on vulnerable populations. They actually did use LSD, sensory deprivation, and psychological torture. They actually did violate every ethical standard in the name of Cold War paranoia. But MK Ultra isn't the only real conspiracy in Stranger Things. Let's talk about 11's remote viewing abilities, her capacity to spy on people psychically, to see distant locations with her mind. That seems like pure science fiction, except it's not. The US government ran something called the Stargate project, funded by the US Army, which aimed to research paranormal phenomena, including psychokinesis, mind reading, and remote viewings of events and conversations. Just like when 11 listens in on a Russian agent's conversation in the show. The Stargate project recruited psychics. They tested telepathy. They investigated whether people could use their minds to spy on enemies. The government even hired a psychic headhunter to recruit candidates. This wasn't a fringe experiment. This was funded by military intelligence for decades. And it gets weirder. In one experiment, researchers had men stare at goats, attempting to kill them with telekinesis. This became the basis for the book and movie The Men Who Stare at Goats. In Stranger Things, 11 is forced to kill a cat using her mind. The parallel is exact. Did remote viewing work? The government says no, but they kept the program running for 20 years. They wouldn't have done that if there was zero evidence of success. And to this day, large portions of the Stargate project remain classified. So when 11 uses her powers to spy on Russians, remember, the US government genuinely believed psychic spying was possible. They spent millions trying to develop it, and maybe, just maybe, they succeeded. Now let's talk about the location, Hawkins Lab, the sinister government facility where all the experiments take place. The Duffer Brothers didn't just invent this. The show is reportedly based on a real place in Montauk, New York, called Camp Hero. Camp Hero was a military base in Long Island during the Cold War. While no one is certain what happened there aside from spies with security clearance, conspiracy theorists believe the US government conducted projects to develop psychological warfare techniques and research paranormal activity, time travel, mind control, and contact with extraterrestrial life. This conspiracy theory is called the Montauk Project, and it's so closely tied to Stranger Things that the show was originally going to be called Montauk before the Duffer Brothers changed it. Documentary filmmaker Christopher Garetano investigated allegations from 3 men who claimed they were brainwashed and forced to take part in experiments at Camp Hero in the 1970s and 1980s. These men described being abducted as children, subjected to mind control experiments, and experiencing missing time. Can we prove the Montauk Project was real? No. But Camp Hero was a real military installation. It did conduct classified research, and multiple people have come forward claiming they were experimented on there. The parallels to Stranger Things are undeniable. A secret government base, experiments on children, mind control and psychic abilities, dimensional research, even the time period matches, the late 1970s and early 1980s, exactly when Stranger Things is set. So is Hawkins Lab based on Camp Hero. The Duffer Brothers have confirmed the connection. They researched Camp Hero. They wove the Montauk conspiracy into their show. Whether the conspiracy is real or not, it inspired one of the most terrifying elements of Stranger Things. But let's talk about something even more grounded in reality. Agent Orange. In Season 3, Chief Hopper mentions his experiences in Vietnam and references Agent Orange, the herbicide used by the US military during the war. Hopper makes an explicit reference to the pesticide Agent Orange, which was used in the very real Operation Ranch Hand. This isn't a throwaway line. This is historical fact. Agent Orange was sprayed over millions of acres of Vietnamese jungle to destroy enemy cover. But it was also a chemical weapon that caused cancer, birth defects, and long-term health problems for millions of people, including American soldiers. The US government initially denied Agent Orange was dangerous. They told veterans it was safe. They covered up the health consequences for decades. Sound familiar? That's exactly what happens in Stranger Things. The government lies, the government covers up, the government sacrifices its own people for strategic advantage. Hopper's mention of Agent Orange isn't just backstory. It's a reminder that the government conspiracy in Stranger Things isn't exaggerated. It's based on pattern of real cover-ups, real lies, and real harm. And then there's the Satanic Panic. In Season 4, the Hellfire Club, a Dungeons & Dragons group, becomes the target of hysteria. Eddie Munson, a metalhead who plays D&D, is accused of being a satanic cult leader. The town turns on him. People genuinely believe he's summoning demons. This sounds absurd, but it actually happened. During the 1980s, there was a period called the Satanic Panic, a time of mass hysteria and conspiracy theories suggesting the existence of satanic cults committing murder and abuse. Heavy metal music, D&D, and anything considered counterculture were blamed for corrupting youth. An activist group called BAD, Bothered About Dungeons & Dragons, was formed in 1983 to fight the role-playing game, claiming it featured sex perversion, satanic-type rituals, sadism, demon summoning, and even insanity. Eddie Munson's character is inspired by Damien Echols, a member of the West Memphis 3D, who became a target of a witch hunt for not conforming during the Satanic Panic. Echols was convicted of murder based largely on the fact that he wore black, listened to metal, and was interested in the occult. He spent 18 years in prison before being released when evidence proved his innocence. The Satanic Panic ruined lives. People were falsely accused, families were torn apart, and it was all based on moral hysteria and conspiracy theories with no evidence. So when the people of Hawkins turn on Eddie, when they form a mob and hunt him down, remember, this happened in real America in the 1980s. Innocent people were persecuted because of fear, ignorance, and paranoia. Let's talk about one more disturbing parallel: death cover-ups. Throughout Stranger Things, the government covers up deaths, disappearances, and violent incidents to hide their experiments. Barb's death is covered up. Bob's death is covered up. The entire existence of the Upside Down is hidden. This seems like typical conspiracy fiction, but the real MK Ultra program had a body count too. The most famous case is Frank Olson, a CIA scientist who fell from a hotel window in 1953 and died. The official verdict was suicide, but declassified documents later suggested he may have been murdered after threatening to expose MK Ultra. During MK Ultra, some test subjects died as a result of the experiments, but the CIA covered up any connections. Due to lack of record-keeping and destroyed documents, we'll never know how many people died because of MK Ultra. So when you watch the government in Stranger Things covering up deaths and silencing witnesses, remember, the real CIA did exactly that. They destroyed evidence, they covered up fatalities, they protected their programs at any cost. Here's what makes all of this so disturbing. Stranger Things works as horror because it taps into real fears. The fear that the government is experimenting on us. The fear that children are being harmed by those in power. The fear that the truth is being hidden. And those fears aren't irrational. They're based on history, based on declassified documents, based on victims who came forward, based on congressional hearings that exposed the truth. The Duffer Brothers didn't create Hawkins Lab from imagination. They researched real government conspiracies and wove them into their story. They wanted the supernatural element to be grounded in science in some way. So they built their fictional horror on a foundation of real horror. MK Ultra actually happened. The Stargate project actually happened. Camp Hero actually existed. Agent Orange actually poisoned people. The Satanic Panic actually destroyed lives. The cover-ups actually occurred. The monsters might be fictional, but the conspiracy is real. So the next time you watch Stranger Things, pay attention to the details. The sensory deprivation tanks, the government agents in suits, the classified experiments, the cover-ups, the lies. These aren't just plot devices. These are references to real history that most people don't know about. Stranger Things is terrifying, not because of the Demogorgon or Vecna or the Mind Flayer. It's terrifying because the human evil at the heart of the story actually existed, and maybe still does. If this video changed how you see Stranger Things, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the real history behind your favorite shows and movies. Drop a comment. Which real element of Stranger Things disturbed you most? Did you know about MK Ultra before watching the show? What other hidden references do you think we missed? Remember, fiction is often just truth in disguise, and sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones that are human. The Upside Down might not be real, but the darkness it represents, that's been here all along.